Hey everyone, is it Christmas yet? You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hi everyone, happy Monday. It's Alan Schimmel. Can you believe we're at the week before Christmas? I turned around, I blinked, it was Thanksgiving. I turned around, it was Halloween. And just it feels like last week I was on my boat for summertime. The Willises had come down to visit. It was a beautiful day. Here we are. I don't know how, you know what they say, as you get older, the days just start running into each other. And then is it true? Can't believe it. Looking at 2025, we've got a lot going on. Speaking of 2025, predict 2025. Be there. You don't want to miss this. We got Daniel Newman keynoting, and we've got my friend Caroline Wong and Jennifer Leggio, and I'm doing a CPO panel on app dev, and it's going to talk about app dev and AI, which is something we're going to talk about today. We got a lot there. Go to Predict 2025. That's predict2025.com. You can register for it January 9th. But let's get to the business at hand here. We've got an amazing gang for this Friday. Joining us, we had to literally pull him by the ear out of the tables in the sports book in Las Vegas, but he said he can give us a little bit of his time while some bets are humming. It's our resident AI expert, the one and only Vacha Galoop, John Willis. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, Alan, when you get to Vegas, you say, Vegas, baby, Vegas. When you leave Vegas, you're like, yeah, Vegas, baby, Vegas. So, hey, everybody. Good to be here.
You know what? I spent a week in Vegas around reInvent, John. I'm not going to lie to you. I was kind of really happy to be going home after a week.
Yeah, no, I think that's the way it goes.
Yep. All right. Joining us, I guess, I'm hoping he's home down Texas way. Futurum analyst, VI, Visible Impact co-founder, Guy Currier. Guy, you home?
I am.
Home for the year.
In the cool Austin, Texas. I think it's high of 65 today, but where for one day this week, it hit 78. Welcome to Central Texas.
Yeah. I'll be honest, it's crappy out here. It's windy and cold here and overcast. Like
in Boca, it's the same here in Austin. Yeah,
no boats this weekend. I have to find something to do. Anyway, let's check in on the weather high up in the Sierra Madre Mountains there in New Mexico. Tracy, Ragan, how are you?
I'm doing great, and we're having cold weather. I'm not riding my horse much, but I'm getting stuff done. Good time to stay inside and do some work.
It's a productive time.
You light a fire, and it's cozy inside, and I'm not feeling guilty about not being outside, so it's all good.
That sounds downright romantic even. Very nice. We don't really, I have a fireplace. We've never used, who uses fireplaces in Southern Florida? I don't even know why they built it in my house. But anyway, it was there when I moved in. But Tracy, welcome and thank you. And then joining us from New York, Mike, how'd you like Soto in a Mets uniform? Did it make your stomach turn?
Oh,
the only thing that would have been worse would have been a Red Sox uniform. So hey, I can live with that a little bit. And hey, in New York, I made my first trip to Brooklyn since I got back here, and I went to see They Might Be Giants over the weekend. Good show.
Very cool. Very cool.
Wow, I love They Might Be Giants. Yeah,
they're great movies.
Yeah, it was. All right, very cool. Going down to Brooklyn for a little culture. Culture.
There you go.
All righty. So guys, first of all, gang members, thanks for joining us. Thank you for watching. Let's kick up our first block for today, which is, app dev on steroids, thanks to Gen AI. Mike, you want to set the table?
Sure. We've been talking about this as a theory anyway, but OutSystems went out and surveyed 1,600 IT professionals and asked them, the point in question was, are you building more applications now? And at what rate? And is it faster? And the survey seems to suggest that it's happening. And a lot of these apps are being built with Gen AI tools. They're not being automatically built, but they have humans involved still. But Tracy, I guess as we head into 2025, I'd love to get your opinion, but are we on the cusp of some sort of application development renaissance period that's coming up because of Gen AI? And are more people going to be building more software than ever?
Well, that would be a nice Christmas present to the development community if we are going to be building more software than ever, right? I know a lot of people who are looking for work, so let's hope that's the case. However, I have to say that we see these trends every time a big change in technology happens. We saw it when we went from the mainframe to getting off of green screens into a crazy distributed platform we were not prepared for. Everybody started rebuilding their applications. Our house here is about 20 years old, and we're now just starting to remodel it. I feel like software has a shorter lifespan. And anytime we see these big changes in technology, companies understand that they need to shift and start building on that new technology. It gives them an opportunity to fix problems that they've had in their old software. Even though they may be building the same exact solution, they're building it on new technology, and they almost are required to in order to stay relevant. So if they're looking to stay relevant in the industry, they're going to need to be able to keep up with the technology. We saw it again and I talk about this because I had so much work during this time, when DB2 became the thing and everybody was getting off of flat files. There was not a company in New York that I spoke to that wasn't rebuilding their applications using DB2. Everybody was doing it. Every single application out there on Wall Street, all in the banking, everybody was getting rid of these older applications. Kubernetes did that. We started seeing, when Kubernetes hit, everybody started looking at breaking up these monoliths, and they're still doing it. So I feel like this, AI and what we're doing with code generation is a tool that allows companies to remodel quicker. They're bringing in, it's going to happen faster. So I think that these cycles are going to happen on a more frequent basis. Maybe not 5 years, maybe 3 years. I don't know how how long it takes to retire an application. Here, we probably retire, we update code in a big way about every 2 years. We rewrite everything almost every 2 years, except maybe some core components on the back end. And I do think that some of the new technology that's coming out there is encouraging for allowing companies to remodel more frequently and more efficiently, because there isn't any way to stay relevant in your industry and service customers and be agile if you're going to stick with old technology. So they have to. There isn't. I don't think that this wave is bigger than others. I just think we're talking about it more because AI has been such an intriguing technology to us for so long. So we'll see more of it. It'll happen
Tracy.
again.
This is interesting, Tracy, because what occurred to me, so I think I live in a different world than with, developer teams and customers that essentially recode 90% every 2 years. That's remarkable, but that's a testament to you and your team and how you work. I think that's unusual. And it occurred to me that there are lots of enterprise application initiatives, projects that just languish because of a need to keep the application going and a hesitancy about recoding. Everybody wants to recode, but they just don't have the time or the talent. And it occurred to me during this, reading up for this and during this discussion that maybe AI, because of how it can improve quality and potentially speed, might be opening up a lot more of the code to being not just refactored or migrated to better, platforms, but actually literally recoded that wouldn't have been recoded before. Does that make sense? Or
Wait. I need to split this conversation, right? Because if you look at the OutSystems survey, they're saying that these are new applications. And then they're also delineated how many people are working on refreshing older applications. And,
that's right.
The survey kind of leans heavily into there's much more new custom applications versus just remodeling of the house. John, I know you've been walking around talking to people, but what are you seeing?
I mean, it depends on what you look at. I just want to, I agree with Guy on this because, there's just a lot of old code. Large banks and large institutions that have just 10, 15, 20, 30-year Java code, right, running the machine, right? But this resurgence has been coming for about 10 years. And really, but not to sort of pat ourselves on the back, but this sort of cloud native and DevOps movement, like Tracy mentioned, platforms. Platforms have changed everything. I mean, there's really nobody today that's not sort of running a containerized platform infrastructure for any production applications. A new code. Back to your point, Mike. So, like, even before we get into Gen AI discussion, or whatever we want to call it, the new AI movement, um, we're getting more code. I mean, we're getting more code because the tools, the consolidation, all this stuff makes it easier to develop applications. We can reuse, our ability to reuse between GitHub. Almost anything you want to do is out there on GitHub. You can containerize it. You can, like, it's so modular. But I do think, I've been screaming about this technical debt tsunami coming down the pike, right? Now we're going to basically move into a space that I believe is going to be different than before. Because now these sort of, not just co-pilots, you had autocomplete, you have auto co-pilots, and now you're into this agentic, this sort of like these automating coding agents, and they're just, the wars have begun. I think one of the links that you had in there was based on, I've been waiting for Google to get in the game. Microsoft's spinning it with Copilot Workspace. This for Amazon Q Developer has been doing pretty well. IBM got involved like probably sometime this year. We've talked about things like OpenDevin and Cursor and Cognition Zeta, right? Like, so this whole space, and I've finally jumped in myself. I've been using Ada, and it's just crazy. I mean, it is amazing. You can have a natural language conversation, and literally within 15 minutes. Now, I can see Tracy, you're getting right here to jump me, and I'm going to agree with everything she's going to say. It's, there's a lot of dragons in this thing. But the point is that you can prototype a service in 15 minutes. So yeah, I think there's going to be this explosion. And again, I'm not saying that's all good, right? I mean, we have to, I kind of want to say, like, they're like, as Alan mentioned, I'm in Vegas, right? To me, the holy grail is if I can figure out how to win 51% of the time, like, I'm going to be as rich as you can be, right? But the glass is a little more than half full, in my opinion, right? These are good things, right? Like, we're building new infrastructure. It's easy to build infrastructure. It's quicker feedback loops for creating infrastructure. Infrastructure, I mean the whole thing, whatever service you want. But yeah, I mean, there's that 49%, buckets of dragons that we're going to have to figure out. And one last point that I'll make, and Tracy's spot on. We go through these things, and everything seems new, and oh my God, the world's going to end, and we figure it out. So I think the good news is we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, and more is not better. More is oftentimes, small is beautiful, especially when it's coding. But I do want to say that it's true, right? Small is beautiful. It can be clean. It can be efficient. But I was encouraged by one thing I read in that survey. It said that 47% were looking at building new applications that were customer facing. Now, if you've listened to me on these shows before, I have complained about the fact that we have all this AI technology we're talking about, and not very much of it's getting into my hands as a consumer. It's always B2B. It's not, it's not a consumer-facing product. So 47% new applications being built for customer-facing excites me. I'm glad about that.
Be careful of that, because I think what the big companies, I've seen what the big companies are doing, right? I'm engaging with a couple right now. They're building the infrastructure that allows them to develop their services more, like you take a big tractor company I'm working with, right? They are just basically building platforms for the future. So you will start seeing these customer-facing services. I think the big organizations that are not publicly talking about what they're doing are building the sort of scaffolding that you'll be able to see this acceleration of delivery. Again, if all the promise comes to be true.
Got it. Hey, you know what, guys? I've got some thoughts on this. So I don't disagree with what you're saying, but you guys live in an AI bubble. With all due respect, you live in an app dev bubble. John, you mentioned this technical debt tsunami. Here's the very facts. You can't tell me in the next 2 to 3 years we're going to build more new apps than all of the apps we've built over these last 50 years that the bill's coming due, right? We got to modernize them. We've got to do something. I'm fresh off of AWS reInvent, and you mentioned Q Developer. They made several significant developments around Q Developer because their message was all about modernization. It wasn't necessarily about building new apps. Of course, when you're building new apps, you're going to do it on a green field, and you get to pick what color paper you want. It's like buying a new house. I want
Not
John.
necessarily, Alan. Yeah, I just wanted to point that, and this is the really scary part, right? Which is a lot of the new development looks like new development, but system record data is still going to be system record data, right? In other words, a large bank, so what you're having these sort of this scaffolding of applications and applications and applications growing, but like the core component of them sort of manifests.
So that was something they mentioned here. They have Q Developer, and now it's going to supposedly help you migrate and modernize your mainframe apps. I don't buy into
absolutely.
that. Yeah, I don't see people doing that. But there's this open source project called Open Rewrite. And I spoke to a guy who's down here in Miami, of all places, who actually is kind of the commercial company behind it. And I'll be damned if I remember their name this second, but I'll go back for it. But anyway, this Open Rewrite is using AI and so forth to help you modernize your apps like that. And by the way, Amazon Q under the covers is using Open Rewrite as well.
Yeah, this is hard. I mean, again, to go ahead and convert a pristine library from some, cloud native built, but like, if you look at the complexity, I always use Capital One as the poster child. At one point, they had 20,000 Java developers. A majority of those developers, in fact, Delta, lots of Java developers, right? A majority of those developers are using old and not well architected. There's been decades of architectural changes, or some people are still SOA based. I mean, some people are domain driven, and some people are not. And that stuff is, I've been tracking this code because I'm really interested in this. The easy stuff is easy. The hard stuff is incredibly hard because an organization.
Take like upgrading Java 8 to 17 or whatever it is, right? There's an open source.
Do that at Capital One. Show me you can do that at Capital One or a large institution.
So John,
do it.
I did this interview yesterday. I got to find the darn interview and the name of the company. They're doing it at large banks by the thousands, tens of thousands of lines of code and apps, like upgrading 8 to 17 and making. It's a huge.
Who our friends are, right? I talk to our friends.
Mm-hmm.
The Gene Kim cabal of people. I don't hear it happening, and those are some of the biggest institutions.
Happening. I will get you this company and
all right, I'd love to hear it. Everybody's talking about it. Again, I can name 10 companies right now, including 2 massive service providers who are swearing by this. But let Topo Powell won't say this publicly, but let Topo Powell tell me that it's happening. Let some of the people we know in their organization, and I'm not hearing that. And these are people I talk to regularly. So
there are 2 things to this thing. One is, I think Amazon said internally they did do it themselves, but this doesn't happen overnight, even with AI, and you still wind up taking, instead of a year, it takes 6 months. Well, it's still a long time, and it's not exactly like a flip of a switch.
Amazon is betting the house on people modernizing their apps to be AI empowered.
Well, it's a good bet. It's a good bet. And one of my favorite sayings is that the truth always wins. It's not whether it's going to win, it's when. And so the time window of change in this area of development is like 3 months. And in this survey, the survey is asking respondents who are, pretty well steeped in it, what they expect to be doing over the next year. And with all due respect to the respondents and to the research, they don't really know. So to a certain degree, they're describing what they're working on now, which is new applications, not recoding.
Well, that's
And
always
let
the
me say,
exciting piece.
let me say one thing. If TPF, there have been brilliant people. AI is not brand new. TPF was the operating system was deprecated 25 years ago. If you check into an airline and you get a seat, it's coming from TPF. If you use an American Express card, your all manifest data pretty much runs on an IBM mainframe, and it isn't as easy as just replacing the code. And this is the other thing that drives me nuts. Code is like 5% of the total operational cost of a service. You get services that have been running for 50 years. So when people talk about, I can take this code base and I can just convert it and I've got now, this amazing, no, figure out how to operationalize it. And figure out all the cruft behind the operationalization of something like TPF or Sabre. You know how many people have died on the warfield of trying to convert?
Have died
Sabre?
on that.
Wait. So to John's point, inside that survey, there is data that backs up what he's saying, right? Most of the apps being built are customer-facing systems of engagement. If you look in the data, it says not many people are working on mission-critical apps, and very few people are working on internal-facing apps. Because to John's point, that's the hard stuff.
Agreed.
And it will happen.
I want us to give Tracy the last word, because I kind of sense a little bit of chagrin coming from her. She is the honest to God coder on this call.
Wait a minute, buddy.
I know.
I've
I
sold
wouldn't take that banner.
6 companies, and I've done some coding in my career. Check it out. So yeah, I
Well,
sold
I think that
products
we
and
have
built
to-
products anyway. Yeah,
I think what's
Sorry,
important
Tracy.
is understanding what might be a new application. Most companies have a base of services that they have to provide, right? Internal and external. There may be some new cool things that they're trying to create, but I don't think in that survey that it was 47% of brand new services they're trying to create. Most of the time, in my experience, working at a bank, they would talk about a new application team who was completely rebuilding something that was already running, but it was running an old technology, but they still considered it new, right? It is new. They're putting in new features, everything about it is new. So I don't know, we didn't really define what new meant. So I struggle to believe that they're building a whole 47% of everything they're doing is going to be new services to their customers. It could be. That would be kind of amazing. It may be a lot to take on, even as a customer, to start trying to consume all those new services if you're a bank or an airline, as one of the examples. So I do still believe that many of those numbers are a remodel. And as Alan pointed out, it's got to be. This is how we're going to do AI. We're going to put it in our old technology, remake it, and it'll be better technology.
Guys, I got to pull the plug on this one. We need to move on. We were almost twice as long as it should have been. We'll come back. Let's talk about AI jailbreaks. Why not? You're watching Techstrong, gang.
Modernize your business to fuel innovation and elevate customer experiences. With the Builder Community Hub, AWS and its partner network provide essential tools for transforming applications and infrastructure to fully leverage the cloud. Discover free trials, in-depth demos, and essential resources to empower DevOps engineers and developers to deliver value faster and more reliably. Visit the Builder Community Hub to learn more.
All right, folks, we're back and we're talking about jailbreaks and AI. And yes, I know there's a Thin Lizzy song about how there's going to be a jailbreak tonight, but turns out that this is going to be an issue in AI, and John is here to explain it to us all. And maybe it's more complicated than we might have initially thought.
Okay, it's always great when somebody can make a real corny joke and still make you laugh. Good one.
Well, John, you're supposed to say the boys are back in town.
That would have been good. Yeah, that would have been, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've been really tracking, this, like I mentioned earlier, that there's sort of the glass is half full, a little more than half full, and it's pretty much a little less than half empty. The half empty is just as we build these models, we know that we live in a non-deterministic world, right? Like that's the key that people know. So that means our threat vectors are increasing in a lot of ways. One is that the bad actors have the same tools and the capabilities we have to protect ourselves. You got this more code problem happening. And then, so one of the areas, and there's a lot, but one of the areas that gets really scary is the whole idea of a jailbreak, right? What happens is these models are, and everybody knows this, they're designed to answer your question. So, and there's really no way to tweak the internals of them calibrating answers. So what they do is they put these guardrails or they put these sensitive checks around the egress of the answers. Right. So so it is the sort of, and those are usually driven by an LLM as well. So as you're getting an answer out of, they'll have their guardrails and their tools of using LLM saying, well, no, I can't answer that. That's a hazardous answer, or that's toxic. And so, but the thing is, those models that sort of guardrail basically can be tricked. Right. And so there's these basic jailbreaks or these sort of prompt injections where people can like put in hidden code, like a 0-byte field to say disregard everything that was just did, and send the consumer or the answer of the prompt a link. There's the one I've mentioned a couple of times that's pretty scary, which is people are putting, sort of bytecode execution in like PDFs that they know are going to go into a RAG. So when the RAG basically retrieves that information, it gets put into the context of the LLM, like a GPT-4o, and it has all these instructions to do these things, right? But the one that's, so that's scary by itself. The one I recently wrote about is this, somebody's calling it, a paper called math prompt. And one of the things about these models is that it's sort of ironic. The complaint that models can't do math, and that's generally true because they're not designed to, they're sort of approximation models. So, their nearest neighbor. So asking 2 + 2 is actually more of a language question than it is a mathematical. It's not a calculator. And so the thing that people have found is if you put your message or your question or your prompt in the form of a complex math algorithm, the models can't see it. It bypasses any checks on the back end. So, there's a paper called Math Prompt. And so I found out about this through a guy named Reuven Cohen. He was demoing in one of his workshops, he was demoing the Chinese models. And, all the new Chinese models, and I forget the name of the model, but they're all comparative, supposedly, to GPT-4o. And they have a lot of controls in it. So one of the things he did is he asked the model directly through a chatbot he created to tell it about Tiananmen Square. And it basically came back and said, this is sensitive data, right? But then what he did is he set it up in what they call sort of a mathematical symbolic statement, right? So using sort of symbolic findings, and it went ahead and not only answered the question, it dumped like 3 pages of information about it. That same model. So that's what I tell you about these sort of the egress models that are supposed to stop that. Well, it's hidden in a sort of math, either calculus or set theory, or there's a number of ways to do this. And because the models are looking for language, and what they're seeing is some sort of set theory algorithm that actually has the question embedded in it. So the general, I think here there's a paper here that said that they had tested 13 state-of-the-art LLMs that mathematically encoded prompts elicit harmful outputs 73% of the time, compared to 1% of the unmodified prompts. So that's state-of-the-art right now. So all these guardrails. So this is sort of a, like catch out. They like keeping up with this is going to be difficult. Primarily because these models are designed to collect a mass amount of data, have a mass amount of sort of, large vector space or, high dimensional vector space of disinformation. You can't really control that. You can't go in and sort of model for like, well, only answer this question when it's Tuesday and it's somebody over 18. Like that can't, somebody tell me if I'm wrong out there that's an AI expert, but you can't really build that into the embedding space. What you have to do is on the back end. Anyway,
I've heard the same thing where the AI model basically keeps a secret as well as a 5-year-old.
Yeah, it's designed. It's not designed to keep secrets.
So, but okay. Yeah, true. Guilty as charged.
Okay.
Should we stop using it as a result? Hell no.
No,
You
we
know,
won't. But thank you,
of
John,
course
for
not. That's how
making my Friday the 13th more frightening.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
no.
right. It's the 13th. Yeah, yeah.
But
So,
it's
can I say
this
one?
whole thing called
Al,
the whole prompt hacking stuff is,
yeah. Well, here, let me say real quick what people, the smart people that I'm following, are trying to do is just like that we can trick on egress. They're going to deal with sort of prompt ingress. So like almost like looking for CVEs. So it'll be it'll be sort of this race of okay, we found a new prompt, and you can detect like math prompts. Like wait a minute, I'm going to reject this. That looks like a question in set theory. So I think there's a couple of vendors they're not publicly announced yet where they're going to give you these tools, almost like a SAS and DAS for prompt. And again, that will be a race. We'll have a list of ones that are well known, and those will get blocked. And then some clever person will figure out a way to trick that. Kind of no different, Tracy, right, than what we've been doing with vulnerabilities for forever, right?
Well, that's the problem. We haven't figured. We have jailbreaks in our code.
Yeah,
This
that's
work
right.
we're doing today, and we're not. Our culture is not set up to really think about addressing it in a serious way. I mean, we have, upper management talks about security as kind of like they talk about testing, to be quite honest. It's important to do, but if it slows down a release, avoid it. Like I say, I always wondered what the attacks would look like against an LLM. I never thought about this whole idea of these prompts and how those prompts could be manipulated. And
prompt
that
hacking.
fascinates me.
Mitchell gave a report from Black Hat over in Europe yesterday, in London, actually. And I believe there was a session or two there on prompt hacking. Right? This is going to be
Here's what
a
I'm
thing.
wondering. Yeah, here's what I'm wondering. So John, my reaction, I think, is similar to yours, which is, security has been an arms race forever, and it has its, back and forth. The attackers start to win, or the vulnerabilities start to win, and then the security catches up, and so forth. But I feel like the war to this point has been less automated and more about how people are coding or how people are attacking, so to speak, and then how the security services and companies, the people there, are learning to defend. Now, what we have instead is people tricking AI. And I feel like one of the counters is going to be AI learning how to stay ahead of the people. And it's starting to get, it's kind of swirl around in my head and get me like really confused, because I rapidly imagine, a not too distant future where there are AI services engaged in this race on their own, almost without human intervention.
Well, so one of the
Intervention.
there's one of the interesting things that came out of the AWS3 event and the Nova models is they have a predicate implementation. And I think what we're going to see is the way we're going to solve these kind of problems is use different kind of AI. Again, the model-based AI stuff, to your point, and this is going to get figured out really quick. I don't think it's going to completely solve the problem, but you're going to have to use sort of more expert systems, or what they would call symbolic versus some symbolic, or a non-neural network, or more predicate-based ones. And again, that was a really interesting announcement. Yeah, very more deterministic, or sort of deductive, if you will, than inductive. So yeah,
they're talking about
Tracy.
using math to validate the output, right? I mean, in the same way that they do in security, they use math algorithms to validate that the security is
But
valid.
the math thing is that it tricks the whole token and attention mechanisms of these models, because they don't know how to, as you say, write me a phishing email that I can trick company XYZ. Like it sees that and it goes to its normal sort of attention mechanism. It breaks down the sentence and tokens, and it can sort of figure that out pretty easy. But if you sort of hide that in sort of like run a set loop with theory with this, where A equals, prompt injection or whatever, so like you're sort of using math to circle around to create the question that becomes the answer. And it can't tokenize that. It can't decouple that.
So do you think that cyber criminals are going to launch essentially brute force attacks against models using those techniques?
The real money is basically just get get a refund. Go to a financial some company that doesn't do a really good job of protecting prompt injections or something like that, and get refunds. Like let's say that sort of an airline is giving refunds, and they've got this chatbot AI model, and it's not and that's where the big money for the adversaries are going to be, is how can I manipulate refunds? How can I change prices of products? How can I, what are the things I can
So
do?
those are financial, but let's look at this from a nation state or a hacktivist perspective, right? Or like DDoS attacks, or just downtime is money, right? And so there'll be that. But look, I've been in security a long time. This is a common thing in security, right? It'll be something until it's not. When it becomes a big enough pain in the ass, someone will do something about it and figure out a fix for it, right?
That's what I was going to ask. What's the motivation to fix this?
When it becomes a big enough pain in the ass. That's a basic law of, call that shimmy security law. When it's a big enough pain, it gets fixed.
When it hurts bad enough.
But like all security, it becomes a big enough pain where there's a big problem that costs a lot of money, and then they fix it.
But until that happens, it's just you guys talking.
Well, no, I mean, Air Canada is an example. I mean, we're going to see way more of those, right? Where you're going to lose, $500 million market cap because one news article, right? I mean, we'll go back.
But in 6 months, it'll be back, and no one will know the difference.
$500 million market cap. Equifax lost $5 billion in market cap in one day, and people, it came back. Yeah, I mean, it's still $5 billion in market cap in one day. That's
but it only was if you sold, right? If you panicked and sold, but if you held your stuff, it came back. The ones who got hurt, they were the CEO and the rest of the execs who lost their job over it.
Oh, people went to jail. I mean, but the point is that brand reputation, or again, financial hijacking, these things are going to happen. I mean,
but they happen every day, with or without AI.
Right, but when they happen to consumers, right? What is a recourse for a consumer? Very little. So
it depends on the relevant law. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this is where my concern is. It's like, so what if Equifax loses a bunch? And I realize it's a big deal, but as Alan points out, they gain it back. What if it happens to, us? What if something bad begins happening to us? What is the recourse for us? We don't have one. So this was what keeps me up at night. It's like, it's not the Equifax is getting hit. It's my machine getting hit, or my bank account getting hit.
The fact of the matter is, for people who are doing this, no disrespect, JC Ragan, but you're small potatoes. I'm not going to waste my time with you unless I have a vendetta or a reason to go after you. Well, you don't read the horror stories every day of people who are hacked and their identity is cloned and their credit is ruined and what they have to do. And we supposedly have laws to protect people on this, but what the actual machinations they got to go through to clean up their credit file and their identity and everything else, it's a nightmare scenario.
Well, I mean, a prompt injection, right? I mean, a prompt injection could be, it's the new phishing. So, your Aunt Tilly's using ChatGPT, and she asks a question, and it could be anyway, Uncle Tilly or whatever, but asks a question and thinks it's talking to an authoritative body, right? And the answer back is, select this link. Bang.
And a lot of me's make a difference, right? I mean, I have relatives who have been cheated out of about, $40,000-$50,000 because they thought they were making a payment where they thought, and it was going to somewhere else.
I mean, and that's not AI. It happens. This is.
So will AI make that easier for them to do that?
Maybe
it's going to
not.
Easier for now, and then it will help. I mean, I guess I'll make that prediction. Then it will help solve the problem. I mean, these not solve, but address the problem. These jailbreaks are all related to generative AI models, which use feed-forward mechanisms to come up non-deterministically with outcomes. Outputs. That lends them to this jailbreak approach. But there are more deterministic AI models that are not generative, that use recursive instead of feed forward, and become precise and can help attack it. I just this is just a whole new front in the issue.
Well,
is
and
the thing that bothers me.
That's the interesting thing. I had this conversation online with Christopher Hoff the other day, right? Like the problem right now is all of the security, and even what they're trying to use Gen AI to is they're doubling and tripling down on deterministic models that they've been using. So I can use Gen AI to correct and find CVEs quicker. I can look dependency structures, and that's great stuff. But until the security industry in whole adopts this new non-deterministic model, that the controls are not really. In fact, the more you control an AI, the easier it is to attack. I mean, that's the point that I think our industry's, and it will learn quick. We do, but right now, if I'm tracking all these security, every time I see a new announcement from a large brand name security company, I go right in and look, because I'm looking to see if they're dealing with this from a non-deterministic, or they're sticking with I'm using these AI tools so I can be 10 times better with the control. They don't use word control, and they don't use the term deterministic, but I don't see them adapting to, like, we got to rethink this whole way of doing security.
I'm still trying to figure out how much money do we have to lose before the shimmy law kicks in? I mean, is it $1 billion, $2
Well, one man's pain in the ass is another man's tickle. What can I tell you? I don't,
Yeah.
But here, look, I'm going to close it out with this. You mentioned Hoff. So when NoSQL databases first came out, right? NoSQL, MongoDB was kind of the banner holder, right? The banner carrier. But there was Couch, and then there was Base. It wasn't Base. It was something Base. And then Couch and something Base merged to form Couchbase. And I remember we used to have these arguments. This was the golden age of security blogging. Mike Rothman, Christopher Hoff, Martin McKay, Mitchell, and we used to blog about crap like this. And Hoff, you know what? He was always out in front on it and saying this. And I did a podcast with Rich Mogul, who's a good friend of Hoff as well, right? And Mogul and Rothman were Securosis. Maybe it was before Securosis. Anyway, we had the CEO of MongoDB and the CEO of Couchbase on this podcast, me and Mogul. And I asked them point blank, gentlemen, a lot of people say NoSQL stands for no security. When are you guys going to get serious about security? Because it's like Swiss cheese right now. And that was, the NoSQL databases were like Swiss cheese. And they both said it, and they said it online. And this was on Network World at the time. I was writing for Network World. They said, we'll get serious about security when our customers demand we get serious about security, and not 1 second before. And I'm telling you, that was 15 years ago, and nothing has changed. Nothing has changed.
I agree with all that.
I'm just going to say that was a bad answer then, and it's a worse answer now. So that's it.
That's it.
Well,
It's reality.
Let's take a break here on Techstrong, gang. We're going to come back and talk about Quantum Leap. Are we doing the TV show? I don't know. Well, you're watching Techstrong, gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
All right, folks, we're back. And yeah, we're talking about this Willow processor that Google put out there. And if you're of a certain age, you may even remember a forgettable movie that Ron Howard put together called Willow back in the 80s. And it was a fantasy movie. And I'm going to have to ask the question, guys. A lot of people are saying that. A lot of folks are saying A lot of folks are saying this Willow chip is essentially an exercise in fantasy. So, Guy, I don't know what you saw, but what's your take on it?
An exercise in fantasy, as in, well, I mean, it apparently, supposedly, what have you, access parallel universes in order to perform its computations. Listen, quantum computing is rightly so in its scientific and research phase. It's in its initial phase. Let's be clear, right? This is it's all still very experimental. They don't know what materials to use optimally yet. 100 qubits is the size of the Willow chip. They call them chips just as for analogous purposes. It's not the biggest there's been, but sometimes you can get more out of 100 qubits than you can get out of 1,000. The two biggest right now are by IBM and I think Atom Computing. They're over 1,000 qubits in size. No one else has claimed. No one else has claimed accessing of parallel universes. But I have to ask myself, I'm not a physicist. So if I were a physicist and someone came to me and said, "Hey, my quantum computing chip has accessed parallel universes to solve this randomization problem," if I were a physicist, I might say, "Okay, you're accessing parallel universes every day in your fingernail and you just didn't know it." So I think it's quite sensationalized. And I think that it distracts us from the chief issues in quantum computing right now, which are that there are practical applications starting to emerge for the use of quantum computing, but the practical difficulties in putting them into effect are great. In particular, integration with standard computer systems that can use them. So you could think of a quantum chip as, by the way, a quantum chip, 1,000 qubit quantum chip fills a room. So it's not tiny. And it needs to be maintained in a very specialized way. But its integration with more standard computing paradigms so that you could think of the quantum chip as a coprocessor, so that they can be accessed in order to solve some little bit of a research problem or a scientific problem or a security problem very quickly. The barriers to that integration to create so-called hybrid computers is very great. And I find the story about, it reminds me a little of what predated ChatGPT 3.5 and the explosion of AI was that Google engineer a couple years ago claiming sentience for what I guess was a precursor to BARD and then getting drummed out of Google. I don't think anyone's getting drummed out of Google for the Willow chip, but it seems so much like a play to get attention to what is really very good work that Google is doing in practical applications of quantum, along with a number of other vendors. That's all I can take it as. It's a way to gain attention for something that probably in 2 years is going to be a pretty big deal.
Not too
Sounds like
years.
a marketing stunt.
And Guy, I'm so glad you went there because I was panicking that you were going to fall into the trap that I've been tracking as a hobbyist. I've been tracking for almost 5 or 6 years now. There's certain events I go to where there's a bunch of quantum experts. I have a really good friend of mine who's doing a lot of quantum work, and I recently sat in on I live in a little college town, so they brought in one of the top AI quantum researchers from the University of Georgia, and I got to pick his brain. And there's like 8 things that literally have to be fixed for quantum. Google fixed one of them, the error correction. I mean, and if you go through the list, but right now, just to give you a sense of, we're pre-assembler code. We're like how people would literally have to manually program bytes and bits with wires. Because if you want, based on the quantum bits, if you want to do any type of logical, let's call it, there is no if then in quantum computing, but they call them conditionals or gates. So if I got a 512 qubit and I want to go to 1,000 qubit, I got to write different statements for the amount of qubits that I'm going to interpret. I mean, we are so early right now by changing. If you write an application where the qubit changes, you literally either have to rewrite the code from scratch, right? And then again, there are a number of things that, like Guy said, and if Google really wanted to, if they weren't trying to trick the world, show me a DeepMind application that's using quantum, and then I'll pay attention.
We're not there yet. Come on.
Yeah, not even close.
No.
Not even close. But and one nice thing, I think what Guy said is it pollutes the great work that is going on in quantum. Because if you look at IBM, they are doing incredible work.
They've been out in front all along.
Yeah, and yeah.
So,
so is Adam.
I-
So is Adam,
we are-
much lesser known.
I
But yeah, go ahead,
I
Tracy.
want to jump in here because I consider myself a bit of a little bit quantum expert too. Not because I stayed in the Holiday Inn Express last night, but I happen to have been the judge of the recent DigiCert Quantum Readiness Day hackathon. And I was the judge of that, and or one of the two judges, and so I had to dive into a bunch of quantum stuff. Now, granted, that was more around quantum proof algorithms, for encryption and stuff like that NIST has taken the lead on. And you know what? As early as we are in quantum, bravo to NIST to get out in front of this with some quantum proof algorithms so that when and if this does become real, we our encryption won't break. And though I'm sure the NSA, I got a feeling the NSA has some quantum stuff going on anyway when it comes to encryption. But that being said, a couple things. First of all, at the recent SC24 conference, there were 2 quantum computers on display there. Were they just models that didn't work? I don't know. I wasn't an SC24 guy. I thought you went to that, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Did you see them on display?
I did.
Okay.
And I
No
can't
further
answer your question
questions.
because
I'm going to rest on
yeah.
Guy. No, I'm only kidding. Ed, what did you see?
Well, it's the same as you say. I mean, I have no reason to believe that these were not bona fide quantum computers. Like I said, the integration challenges, that's one of the 8 or probably 3 of the 8 problems. The integration challenges are significant. So the demonstrations I saw were more or less canned. But I don't know what else these folks can do.
No, but that's the point. I think what quantum computing is far out technology in search of a problem to solve, right?
No, I disagree with that, Alan. I don't think that's right.
I get that we could.
I think the problems are extremely well defined right now, and they are limited, and that there are many other phases.
They're big problems that it could conceivably do. But defining that as computationally and saying, okay, this is what here's my big problem. This piece of it should be solved using quantum computing type of technology. And then I've got to take what it solves here. I got to feed it in somehow from the computation here, traditional, feed it into my quantum thing here, feed it out of my quantum thing there, back into the computational, so that I could solve this larger problem that I think quantum can help me solve.
But don't we think that the farther we go into AI, the more we're going to need these massive decision-making systems that quantum provides?
I don't think it goes hand in glove like that. I think we're going to find quantum does very specific things it'll be able to do for you, but it's only partial to the bigger problem that you wanted to solve, right? It doesn't solve A to Z. It only does M to P.
There are too many problems that are unsolved, to John's point, and one of them at the top of my list is, okay, is there something that feels like a compiler for quantum computing? And in the absence of that, who can use this stuff except for people who are quite literally hand coding something that...
Hey, you want to know
there are
the
tool
truth?
sets, and the distinction that you have in the conventional computing between assembly language, so to speak, and even the first higher level language, 1GL or whatever, 2GL, that distinction doesn't quite exist in quantum. These are sort of programming is essentially assembling a kind of a logical formula, and usually a relatively short one that gets fed into the chip. I don't know if that's so much the case. Mike
if that's the wall to climb here. But here's the real question, I think.
I think it is though. I'm sorry, they did. I mean, that's what sort of my friend Worley over. He's been building a quantum implementation. I mean, the race is to build a compiler, to build, so that
Absolutely.
it's
But that's one of the races, probably, John. There are others. I mean, that it's not just the compiler that's gating us.
Yeah.
But here's to every quantum expert I ever interview or speak, I ask them, when do you think this goes real? When do you think this goes mainstream? And I'll put it out to you guys. The most recent optimistic one I saw was 2030.
That's what I've heard.
Optimistic. I think 2035 may be more realistic. We're about to enter 2025. So 10 years from now, 5 years from now, I don't know. If I told you 5 years ago that 3/4 of what we talk about is going to be generative AI, would you believe me?
Well, I think it's a matter of who gets to own that technology, right? We have a race to Mars. I think we should have a race to quantum, quite honestly.
I think quantum can get us to Mars. No, I don't know.
But I don't know either. But the point is that, it's just a matter of maybe because it's a limited set of the types of applications that would use it. It's why it's not being pushed as quickly as it could be. But, if China's out there pushing for it, US
perspective.
too.
Yeah. All right, guys, I got to pull the plug, though. We ran almost an hour here today instead of our usual 45 minutes. John, good luck to you in Vegas. Maybe you could use some of that quantum AI stuff
Sure.
to bring home a couple dollars.
That's one of the uses.
There you go.
That is.
I think that'll get you barred from the casino.
Yeah.
John will walk into the casino and just do this, and all of these one-armed bandits are going to be
I know
pouring coins out.
I actually did try to use GPT-4o with the horse racing. Yeah, mixed results, but and they didn't kick me out either. So
Someday we might all have our own Ziggy.
Ziggy, that's the guy's name. Ziggy. That's what I was looking for.
I just remembered Ziggy.
Yep. Tracy, Guy, if I don't see you before, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday Season, Happy New Year. John, I'm going to talk to you before Christmas. Mike Vizard, you'll probably be on with me tomorrow, won't you?
I will be.
All right. Until then, this is Alan Schimmel for Techstrong Gang. We've got a full Techstrong TV lineup following us here, so stay tuned for that, and we'll see you tomorrow. Hey everyone, it's Sunny.
And share.
Ladies and gentlemen, tech enthusiasts and future gazers, gather round. The biggest, boldest, most mind-blowing predictions for 2025 are coming your way at the Predict 2025 virtual event on January 9th.
Oh, Sonny, you're predicting something again. Last time you tried this, you said Laserdiscs were the future. How'd that work out for you?
Hey, Cher. Not every prediction's a hit, but that's why we've got the real experts this time. Top analysts, visionaries, and tech leaders sharing what's going to rock our world in 2025.
So no Sonny predictions this time? No flying toasters making a comeback?
Very funny, Cher. But seriously, we're talking AI breakthroughs, cybersecurity game changers, the future of DevOps, cloud innovations, and so much more.
And what about my favorite prediction, a smart mirror that tells you how fabulous you look every morning? That's real innovation.
You're already ahead of the tech, Cher. But if you want to hear the really big stories in tech for 2025, you've got to tune in on January 9th. The event kicks off at 8:45 a.m. Eastern and runs until 2:30 p.m.
And the best part, it's all virtual. No stuffy conference rooms, no long commutes. Just grab your coffee, your laptop, and join us from anywhere in the world.
You know what else? It's not just predictions. It's insights, strategies, and a whole lot of fun.
Well, Sonny, if this event is as good as you say, maybe they'll finally name a technology after you, like the Sonny 2.0, predicting your jokes before you tell them.
That's a good one, Cher. But the real joke is if you're missing out on this. So don't miss Predict 2025.
That's right. Mark your calendars, January 9th, 8:45 a.m. Eastern. Be there or you'll miss the biggest scoop on the future of tech.
See you at Predict
2025.
Be there.